lifespan of the Wolsong-1 nuclear reactor will be extended after a tight vote at Korea's Nuclear Commission into the early hours Friday morning. The Constitutional Court of Korea has struck down a long-standing law that criminalized adultery. And a bill legislating graphic health warnings on cigarette packs has at long last passed the National Assembly's Health and Welfare Committee.
Hello and welcome to News Today on KBS World. It's Friday, February 27th. I'm Luke Clary. Wolsong-1 nuclear reactor will resume operations after the Nuclear Safety and Security Commission voted early Friday morning to extend the lifespan of the 30-year-old reactor until 2022.
The lifespan of Wolsong-1 nuclear reactor will be extended. The decision came after 3 rounds of meetings. The Nuclear Safety and Security Commission, or NSSC, held a heated discussion from Thursday morning until early Friday morning. They debated over safety issues stemming from the reactor's extended lifespan and how to incorporate local opinions in the review process. Neither the proponents nor opponents yielded. When a vote was about to take place early Friday morning, a shouting match broke out and 2 of the commission members walked out in protest.
충분한 심의도 되지 않았고 그리고 또 법적인 한결도 있는 상태에서 표결되는 것에 동의할 수 없어서 나왔습니다.
The remaining 7 members all agreed to extend the reactor's lifespan. The NSSC had debated the issue of the reactor's continued operation in January and on February 12. However, its conclusion had to be postponed for a wide gap between the opposing sides prevented them from reaching a compromise.
안전에 대한 기준이 위원들 간에 조금씩 차이가 있어가지고 거기에 대해서 아마 공감하기는 좀 일치하기는 좀 어려웠던 것 같아요.
Wolsong-1 reactor, which was originally designed to run until November 2012, will remain in operation until 2022.
The Constitutional Court of Korea has ruled that a long-standing law banning adultery is unconstitutional. 7 out of the 9 judges ruled against the law, bringing it to an end.
7 votes were cast in favor of the law's abolishment, 2 against. The Constitutional Court ruled 7-2 that the law banning adultery in Article 241 of criminal law is unconstitutional. As the number of judges ruling against the law banning extramarital affairs surpassed the required quorum of 6, it was repealed directly. There are no more legal grounds to jail cheating spouses and their partners for up to 2 years. The decisive factor behind the judge's decision was the right of individuals to make their own choices regarding sexual conduct. 7 of the judges, including Constitutional Court President Park Han-cheol, said that the law criminalizing infidelity violated the public's right to sexual self-determination as well as their privacy. The Korean Women Lawyers Association, among others, welcomed the ruling. It said that the ruling was meaningful because the law banning adultery only promotes divorce, as divorce is a precondition to legally charge cheating spouses. By contrast, the Confucian group Seonggyungwan blasted the Constitutional Court's ruling and stressed that even if the law criminalizing infidelity is abolished, moral standards must not be forgotten. It took the Constitutional Court 5 tries to rule that the law banning adultery was unconstitutional. The law had been in place since 1953, but now it has become a thing of the past.
A bill legislating graphic health warnings on cigarette packs has at last passed the National Assembly's Health and Welfare Committee. Now all eyes are on whether the bill can pass at the last parliamentary plenary session next month.
가결되었음을 선포합니다.
A revision plan for the National Health Promotion Act has been approved at the plenary session of the National Assembly's Health and Welfare Committee. The amendment calls for putting graphic health warnings on cigarette packs. The bill stipulates that cigarette manufacturers must display warning labels and photos, which take up more than 50% of the total area of the front and back of the pack. In addition, graphic warnings must account for more than 30% of the warning label area. Also, the new warning message will include a new phrase saying that smoking may harm other people's health, adding to the existing message that notes it can be dangerous to one's own health. The bill was barely approved at a Health and Welfare Subcommittee meeting 3 days ago after a fiery debate among the lawmakers. Approval from the committee's general meeting was also hard to come by. The revised act was finally approved by the Health and Welfare Committee, but it still faces many obstacles. After 5 days of deliberation, the bill must pass the Legislation and Judiciary Committee in the morning of March 3rd before it can be tabled for the plenary session scheduled for that very afternoon. When the bill is finally approved in the plenary session, it will go into effect after 18 months of preparation.
In an exclusive interview with KBS, the governor of the U.S. state of Maryland, Larry Hogan, pledged efforts to improve bilateral ties between South Korea and the United States. The governor's wife is of Korean descent, and she's embarked on a mission of publicizing Korean culture. Maryland's First Lady's first step was installing a kimchi refrigerator at the governor's mansion.
Maryland State Governor Larry Hogan greeted the KBS team in Korean, referring to himself as a son-in-law of his wife's Korean parents.
안녕하세요. 감사합니다. Thank you for coming to Maryland, to the governor's mansion. I'm a 한국 사위.
The governor vowed his best efforts toward building a strong alliance between South Korea and the United States and stressed that he's looking forward to a state visit by President Park Geun-hye to the U.S.
Hopefully the president will come meet me here in Maryland, but more importantly, the Korean First Lady.
Mr. Hogan's wife, Yumi Hogan, who is of Korean descent, personally showed the reporters her kimchi refrigerator in the governor's mansion and promised to become a PR ambassador of Korean culture.
너무 이게 먹음직스럽게 생겼죠? 김치가. 근데 미국 사람들 저 뒤에 있는 분들은 아, 이거 김치. 아, 저게 김치야. cabbage.
The Maryland governor has also designated Korean American Jimmy Reed to head the governor's office of minority affairs.
The Chinese government has decided to dial back its tough hygiene standards on Korea's iconic food, kimchi. Korean kimchi exports to China had previously been blocked, but are expected to continue within the year.
More than 1.6 million tons of kimchi have been imported by Korea since 2007. Most were cheap Chinese-made kimchi. On the other hand, Korean kimchi makers were only allowed to export sterilized, cooked kimchi to China. That's because the Chinese government had been applying its stringent hygiene standards for pickled vegetables on non-sterilized fermented kimchi. The Chinese regulation stipulates that the number of the colon bacillus group in 100 grams of food should not exceed 30. However, Chinese health authorities revised this standard last month and issued an administrative notice. As a result, non-sterile fermented products were excluded from the colon bacillus test.
미국, 일본 등의 김치를 세계운수에 관계없이 자유롭게 수출하듯이 중국에도 그런 형태로 수출할 수 있게 된다는 것입니다.
The colon bacillus group can exist in freshly made kimchi, but as kimchi ferments, the number of beneficial lactic acid bacteria increases, while that of harmful colon bacillus declines. Chinese authorities have recognized this characteristic of kimchi. The Korean government expects to see kimchi exported to China within this year and plans to expand distribution bases and launch an all-out PR campaign in a bid to outsell the cheap Chinese-made kimchi.
It's hard to find women in their 20s among those giving birth these days. And in fact, the median birth-giving age in Korea has surpassed 32 years old. As women choose to have children later in life, the number of newborns per 1,000 in the nation has plunged to the lowest level ever.
Of the 4 pregnant women waiting to see the doctor at this OB/GYN clinic in Seoul, only 1 is in her 20s. Only 27% of women who gave birth last year were still in their 20s. More than 70% of birth-giving women were in their 30s, and the mean birth-giving age surpassed 32.
결혼을 늦게 해서 결혼을 제가 2013년 10월에 했거든요. 그래서 한 6개월 정도 준비하다가 아이를 가져서 지금 낳게 된 거예요.
The number of women choosing to have second-borns has also decreased as women give birth later in life. Last year, the number of second-borns stood at 165,000, the lowest in 23 years.
늦게 결혼을 하다 보니까 지금 둘째 아를 놓기에는 이미 나이가 많아지고 그래서 지금 둘째 아가 82년 이후에 지금 가장 적은 수치를
Experts are calling for solutions to housing and employment problems first to raise the nation's birth rate and encourage people to get married earlier.
A sudden cold snap has clasped the nation in its icy grip once again. After just one or two more of these cold bouts, spring blossoms are forecast to bloom from mid-March, about 1 to 3 days earlier than in past years.
Yellow witch hazels, known as the harbinger of the spring season, can be spotted on the thin tree branches. They first blossomed on February 11th, and now they've fully bloomed. The pheasant's eye, which bloomed last month, is also enduring the lingering cold. Forsythias and azaleas, most symbolic of the coming of spring, are forecast to bloom 1 to 3 days faster this year compared to the past. Forsythias will begin to bloom from around March 15th in Seogwipo on Jeju Island. They will be spotted in the southern regions from mid-March and by March 27th in the capital Seoul as well. Azaleas will blossom about 3 days later than forsythias, to be first seen around March 18th in the city of Seogwipo. Light pink azalea petals are expected to show up all over the country by late March or early April.
3월 전반에는 일시적으로 추위가 있겠지만 후반으로 갈수록 포근해져 봄꽃 개화 시기는 평년보다 다소 빨라질 것으로 예상하고 있습니다.
But the Korea Meteorological Administration says the bloom dates can differ by up to plus or minus 3 to 4 days due to the whimsical spring weather.
The Korean music scene is caught up in a retro boom. Old songs are coming back in a big way, while 90s bands like Shinhwa and Crying Nut draw enthusiastic crowds. This and more on today's entertainment news.
The long-standing boy band Shinhwa, who debuted 17 years ago, has made a comeback with their 12th album, We. The strong beat of the lead single Sniper showcases masculine group dance moves performed by the 6 members. Particularly of note is that Eric, one of the group's members, is credited with writing all of the rap lyrics for the album's songs. First-generation Korean punk bands Crying Nut, No Brain, and Rux held a joint concert in the Hongik University area in downtown Seoul, known as the Mecca of subculture and indie music. The concert was to commemorate the milestone punk rock performance in 1996 that marked the birth of indie culture unique to the Hongik University area. A 2-part drama series has been produced to mark the 70th anniversary of Korean independence from Japanese colonial rule. The drama deals with the story of Korean victims of Japan's wartime sexual slavery. KBS announced that the 2-episode Snow Road will air this weekend at 10:30 p.m. on KBS 1 TV. Starring actresses Kim Se-ron and Kim Hyang-gi, Snow Road highlights the tragic fate and beautiful friendship of 2 girls who were taken to Japanese military brothels during World War II.
A lot of people use electric heating devices in winter, and that means that the risk of fires is very high during the coldest and driest season of the year. Here's how you can keep your home safe from a house fire when you use electric heaters.
Most of the fires occurring in winter break out due to the careless use of electric heating devices. In fact, 46% of fires in households are caused by inattention. We visited an ordinary household along with a firefighting expert to find out how dangerous the improper use of electricity can be. Inserting too many plugs into a single electric outlet can cause overheating and fire due to overload. After connecting two multi-taps, we found that a half hour later the temperature of the socket surged from 19 degrees to 40 degrees. 1 hour later, its temperature reached 62 degrees. Dust that accumulates in sockets also raises the risk of fires. To check how dust and humidity can raise the possibility of fires, we inserted some cotton into an electrical socket and sprinkled it with some water. About 15 seconds after plugging it in, it caught fire.
멀티코드를 개별 스위치가 달린 것들을 사용을 하셔야 되고요. 그리고 사용을 안 할 때는 반드시 스위치를 꺼놓는 방법을 택하셔야만 합니다.
Make sure to spread your electric blanket even when you're not using it to prevent the sheath of its electrical cables from peeling off, which can cause overheating due to high heat conductivity. Here's what to do when a fire breaks out in your home. If the blaze involves oil, do not pour water on it.
적셔서 물기를 짠 다음에 그걸 덮으시게 되면 불이 꺼집니다. 그리고 다른 방법으로는 요즘에 갖고 계시는 마요네즈 있죠? 마요네즈를 사용해서 마요네즈를 쫙 짜가지고 기름 바지가 발생한 곳에 뿌리시면 또 불이 꺼지게 됩니다.
In this case, sprinkle some baking soda which contains substances similar to those in fire extinguishers or cover the lid to block out oxygen. If the blaze was caused by electricity, shut down the circuit breaker first to prevent electric shocks, which may occur when you pour water on the flames. Of course, the first step toward avoiding house fires is to pull out the plugs you aren't using. Take these small measures to reduce the risk of losing your home to a fire that could have been avoided.
And now let's take a look at the markets, followed by the world weather. And that's it for this edition of News Today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again on Monday. Have a great weekend. Goodbye.